In this documentary, you'll hear about the beginnings of the Faith Tabernacle Holiness Church. You'll see pictures of some of the late founding members of this church. You'll even hear about portions of their stories from living members who can make their faces be more to us than just pictures. Remaining living members will share their personality and godly character traits that help them have the courage to start a brand new church. Interspersed in this work will be pictures of and live shots of past lay members, and you'll even get to see current members. Finally, you will get snippets of what our leaders anticipate will be the future of this church. So, savor a piece of history. Enjoy the present. And let's envision the Faith Tabernacle Holiness Church future together. So what event most caused the Faith Tabernacle Holiness Church to come into existence?
All right. We all remember the Tabernacle Holiness Church in America, and a particular body of congregation Mount Zion, 2026, West Columbia Avenue was then, now seems to be more in Columbia. And pastors started what we call the Pastors Union. And he was getting all the pastors in the movement together to try to stand together to keep from being taken advantage of by the bishops. A lot of them felt that they'd been disadvantaged, being moved at will because they didn't raise a certain amount of money or something of this sort. So in the midst of all of this, they came and removed our pastor. And we as trustees stood together and wouldn't allow them to move our pastor. And that led to an upheaval, a lot of distress and confusion. So for peace sake, they figured it was best to move out and start their own congregation. And that happened. That was in November of '66. On Tuesdays and Friday night, they would meet at Reverend Evans' house, 2765 North 25th Street. And on Sundays, they would have the meeting at the YMC on Broad Street. I think it must be around the Holinesss. And the church began to grow. I was in Jersey at the time, and all of the members that were organizing members did, except two. Our former pastor, Reverend Walker, our pastor now, Reverend Blassingame. All of the other members that actually organized the church going on. We came on a week or sometime 2 weeks later after the organization. And that's what started this. I can give you the name of the original officers if you want to.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Our pastor, founding pastor, Reverend G.M. Evans, and our assistant pastor, Reverend Walker. Our acting church clerk was Sister G.M. Evans. She acted until later. Sister Firby became the original first church secretary. Brother Benny Caruth was the chairman of the Deacon Board. Deacon Thomas Cook was the chairman of the trustee board. And our mother board consisted of Mother Viola Kitchen, Mother Isley Wells, Mother John Monroe, Mother Justice Smith, and that's all that I can remember. Seemed like it was Mother Alice Cook, that's right. And the original mother board, the original usher board. And one was the president, the bishop, and the vice president. Sister Evans, Pastor White, she served as superintendent until I came off jury. I joined the church and became the first elected superintendent. And the secretary, Dolores Frederick, was assistant secretary.
It might be interesting to recognize who Sister Dolores Frederick was, because she was the sister, I believe, of our Sister Debra.
Oh, okay. So now we have another connection. Her name again?
Sister Frederick.
Sister Frederick.
Dolores Frederick was her name. These are young women, young single women.
Mm-hmm.
And that McClyde is dead now. But she was a member. She was an original member, and she was also the granddaughter of one of our later mothers, Mother Anna Stevens.
Okay.
Evelyn Stevens. Evelyn Stevens, sorry. And that's the best I can remember of the original. Some of the original members were Henry Kitchen, George Coleman, Firby, Brother Firby, Sister Firby, Sister Lorraine Wilson. Some of the first people that got saved and joined the church in the wild was Brother Odie Wilson, Brother McConnell Walker, Sister Whitney Walker, and my daughter Beth Ann. All of that saved in the wild and joined the church.
Okay. Well, that sounds like an extensive list. Your memory is
Yes,
excellent.
yes. I think the beginning membership were 65.
Okay.
That was the total membership. And we had service in the wild until December of 66.
Okay.
And November of 1966. So it was our purpose to have a church building by Christmas. And the Lord blessed us to get this building. We first were paying rent and having service with the original congregation, the Ebenezer Gospel Hall. Brother Holinesss was the pastor. And we made,
I think it's important to add to that, Reverend Holinesss was the father of Dolores Tucker.
yes. She was Secretary of the State for one while.
Oh, the Honorable Dolores Tucker?
Yes.
Oh,
That-
okay, yeah.
She was a member of this church, her father pastored.
Her father was the original
Oh, okay. Yes,
bishop.
I heard of her.
And he lived to be 105 years old.
Her father was?
Her father lived to be 105 years old. He was a sweet man. He was blind, but he quoted more scripture than people could see. I mean, he knew chapter and verse, and he could just rattle it off to you, rattle it off to you. It was a pleasure to sit down and talk to the man. I would go down and talk to him. We first started paying our mortgage directly to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they set up a fund, we paid it to the fund, but then one of the daughters stole one of the checks. So we were better paying it directly.
Did you cut it?
She was a Lord. But the church began to grow, and different people began to come, and some saved, and some came from the movement that we had left.
Okay.
And no time hard, we had a full choir. Sister Evelyn was the first president of the choir, and Sister, the senior gospel choir, and Mother Witherspoon was the vice president. Later on, she became president.
Okay.
And things begin to grow. The Lord began to bless us real good.
Well, let me stop you there. Let me just get the opinion from some of the others of you, of the memories you have of some of the founding members. Let's start with Pastor Evans.
Memories of Pastor Evans. Goodness gracious. Pastor Evans, some of the things that come to mind about him are some of his mannerisms that he used, some of the songs that he sang, even some of the messages that he preached. Some of the ones that I remember the most was when I don't even remember what the message was, but it was something about the little chickens that was in the barn. The eagle was down in the barnyard with the chickens. And he said, you have to come up from there. You don't belong in the barnyard with the chickens. I remember a message he preached about men and what a man was. He said, I'm talking about men, strong men.
And he would always shake his head.
Oh,
like
yeah, I mean, he was just really forceful with it. I remember a good sermon that I enjoyed a lot when he preached about what must I do with Jesus. Oh, it was a wonderful sermon. And he would bring in different people from the Bible, characters from the Bible, and ask them, what would you do with Jesus? And what their response would be. And what the angels' response would be to what you do with Jesus. And that we're going to have to answer to God as to what we did with Jesus.
Amen.
So I enjoyed the sermon. It was good to me. I don't know if anybody else
Yeah. There was That was one song that he would sing so often. By and by, when the morning comes. The way he would stand and sing it, you know, it just made you want to join in and sing that song with him. The man was a man of strong will, strong desire to do what he felt was right to be done. And he had respect for him in that way. If he wanted something, he worked for it. He went for it. He couldn't change his mind. He was a very determined person. In the way I saw him, I was a junior pastor with him for quite a while. We worked together, got to know her fairly well. I loved him a lot. I loved him a lot, he and his wife. And she was well, this is him, but when you speak of one, you almost got to speak of the other one, because she was just a beautiful person, lovely person.
Now, you want to talk about Sister Evans.
I know, you can get that one. That was
Sister Evans was my number one mentor.
Yeah.
A woman that I love. I don't know, there's not many people that I put on the plane, Sister Evans.
Okay.
Sister Evans taught us as we were little kids. In the wintertime, we went to Bible club with Sister Evans. In the summer was Vacation Bible School with Sister Evans. I went to her house and she would give me teaching material to show me how to teach kids.
Okay.
I sat in her class in Sunday school until she kicked me out.
Yes, I remember you giving that testimony. You were
Yeah.
16, is that correct?
Yeah.
And she said it's time
And she
for
said,
you
you
to
have to go. You have to go and teach the kids yourself. So, we would come down on Tuesday evenings before service and have community Bible clubs. And I was there with Sister Evans doing the neighborhood Bible teaching clubs. Sister Evans, to me, I had to write a paper in school about who was the best teacher I ever had. And all of the teachers that I had in public school and every place else, my paper was on Sister H.L. Evans. Because to me, she was just a wonderful teacher.
Going back to Reverend Evans, for a while I drove for him when he first came up, going back even to the time he first came to the office.
And when is that?
Yeah, okay. Well, he was back there. And he was staying in Cleveland. And so he would go back to Cleveland periodically on Monday morning. And sometimes I had to take him to the airport. And it's amazing. I guess I had a unique way of driving. I would get lost, but I would find my way where I was going. And sometimes I would pass the same spot twice. He said, oh, I can just pass you, you know. I didn't say nothing. I kept on driving. But he was a man that stood out in his way. And he had strong opinions, was stable. But we all have our way. And so we can look back and thank God for the time that we had together. Of course, it was a learning process for everyone. And one thing about learning, if you really learn something, it lasts. And you pass on the things that you learn. And you practice the things that make the peace.
Okay. So tell me, give me your comments about Lorenzo Walker. He's one of the pastors of the Tabernacle Holiness Church.
When Reverend Evans resigned and went back to Cleveland, Lorenzo Walker became the pastor. And he pastored us for about 2 years. I don't remember exactly how many now. But he was a man that loved to preach. His father was a great preacher. And he would often refer to some of his father's books and things to get his sermons together. We got along very nicely. He and I were really good friends. We went to school together, and we were like brothers. He was just as close to me, or closer to my real brother. And after a while, the Lord led him to move on further. But we had a good time with Reverend Walker. During this time, he and his brother remodeled the church for us, and put the panel on the wall back there. They did all the panel, all the ceiling, the original gold ceiling, trimming and all that was done by Reverend Walker. The flooring downstairs is how we met. Brother Johnny, he was a contractor. And he was supervising work. The brothers came together and the brothers did the work. And it was just a good time together.
Well, let me just clarify that. So you're saying that Reverend Walker and Johnny Walker, that was out in Delaware, is that
Yeah,
correct?
That's the
They're
same.
brothers,
Johnny
they're two
Walker.
brothers.
That's his
Okay,
brother, yeah.
okay.
He just died.
Yeah, I know you started late last year.
But we came up together as young men. Walker, Johnny Walker, Firby, I think they got saved the same Sunday down at Mount Zion, Monarch Street there. City had come to and bought the old church on 10th Street, and we used to have the church in the old St. Joseph on Monarch Street. And I think Brother Firby remembered his son because he preached that day. I don't see that was the street. But we came up as young folk together. Brother Walker came out pastor, we had no problem because we were all familiar, you know. And the church still grew. And members was added. It was able to buy property around the corner. 1913, the first property was bought. And that was on the sheriff's sale. We got a sheriff's sale. In 1917, people lived there and sold us that property. And later on, we got more property. Those were done under the Walker's administration. And the church thrived during that time. And my daughter talked about that in every sermon. One that I remember very well was build church. Instead of building a church, some of us have built a mess. And he's very emphatic in his expression, and he's very determined. He is known to be stubborn, but I found out that stubbornness plays a part in being a real child of God.
Persevering.
And one of his main sayings were, people said you got to have willpower. I said you got to have will not power. Yes. So we've had some good times.
Does anyone have any other comments that they want to give about Pastor Walker?
Well, I go back a long ways with Pastor Walker. He was the best man in my wedding, and we used to travel as single men, go to the various conventions, and sometimes we would go to conventions that we would just survive on life savers on our way to the convention so we could eat out. So we have went through a lot together, and it's just a joy to know that we can come along equal with people and then accept them as they excel in the Lord.
Okay. Now,
Add to that, under Reverend Walker's administration here at Faith Tabernacle, I accepted my calling to the ministry. And Reverend Walker was very instrumental in helping me. I remember the first revival that I ran was in Delaware at Reverend Johnny Walker's church. And Pastor Lorenzo Walker at that time kept encouraging me, you can do this, you can do this. And so we would go every night to Wilmington, Delaware, and as a young minister, for the church to go with me and Reverend Walker to stay with me and see me do the whole thing, it was a memorial to me, something that I'll just never forget.
okay.
Not so much with Reverend Walker, but I just wanted to, our sister Adeline again, when she left, we were blessed to continue in that after-school program because her idea was so, it took such an effect upon me that I knew it was something that should continue. And with much encouragement, I was like the overseer, the best man. Again, pushing her, she would teach the children. I was there to help. I was helping. I didn't do the teaching so much, but to keep order and things like that. And it was so wonderful. The first person I'd ever seen use flannelgraph all my life. I never seen anybody use, and that lady could use the flannelgraph and show you pictures that, you know, you could remember for a long time, for a very long time. She was the first person that got me to read through the Bible.
Okay.
That's why I knew how excited you were when you finished. I started then, and every year more or less since then. Maybe I missed a couple of years, but I read the Bible through. I'm into it again this year because that began with her. You know, a lot of memory stuff like that. I never started until her. I was a young woman, but nobody was telling me to do this before. And when you hear things from a person that you know and you see it exemplified in their life, you know this works. This really works. And this is what with her. But thinking about Pastor Lorenzo, well, he was a very comical person. He was a very serious person. He was comical sometimes. So I remember once he said to me, he was at the other day, before we came here, he said, we had some visitors come in. He said, Sister Firby, you preach tonight, because if you preach, you can get them. He would do stuff like that. He would do stuff like that. But you had to love him. He was a very lovable person. And I thank God for the time that we spent together.
Okay, so we talked about Pastor Evans, Pastor Walker, and a little bit about Sister Evans. Is there anybody else that you really like to just reminisce about?
Yeah, I have one. I think about Deacon Cook was one of my favorites among the brethren, because there wasn't anything I don't think that he couldn't make. And anything around you that needed to be around the church needed to be done. You didn't have to ask him. If he saw it, he would do it. And to me, that is such a beautiful person, doing what you can, using what God has given to you. The brother that was here, even today, looking at the floor, he said, in our church, I do this ourselves. You know, I don't go like a charge because we get brothers to do this. But if you don't have brethren, people can do it, you have to get someone to do it. And you never had to do that with him. He was there doing the work, and I thought it was really wonderful. Just a beautiful person.
Okay, at a time earlier in our coming together, the various ways we used to raise money, selling food, selling dinners. And we had some of the best cooks in the city. I was driving a cab one night, and I passed here with some people in the car, and they pointed to the church and said, ooh, people that can really cook. You know, so we had a reputation of serving good food. And as a result, a lot of things got done. Sister Letitia Whitney, she died in the process of preparing food to be served, to be sold, that the church could survive. And I say the church could survive. A lot of people frown now on having dinners and things, but when you come to an era, you accept the things that are in that era.
Yeah.
The Lord has blessed us now that we don't have to go that route, but if need be, we have people that are willing to do it. Sister Jessie Smith, my mind goes back to her, Sister Right Over the Kitchen, Sister Annie Ronan. So we've had cooks. We've had cooks that really prepared, and then there were women that watched them and learned from them and went on to share that expertise.
I think I'm the youngest person on this group.
Watch yourself.
And as a young person coming up in the church, I just love being around the older people. I think I stayed around older folks as much as they would allow me than I did with the younger people. And it was such a learning experience for me. Even to be able to watch them and see their life as much as I can understand about it. One thing I remember about Deacon Carew, and that's President Deacon Clarence's father. He's passed on now, we're going through the Lord. But it seemed like to me, Deacon Carew always knew who was sick, who needed to be visited. And he would not miss a time visiting anybody that was in a hospital or anything. Deacon Carew would be there.
What a missionary.
Oh yes. He was a very quiet man, but very, how can I say, a man full of integrity, and would make sure that he would be there. The Christmas programs, the Easter programs we would have, they were with my mom, Sister Blassingame, and Deacon Carew's wife, Sister Frances Carew. Very quiet lady, but they kept those programs going Easter time, making sure that the kids had their recitations and would learn their recitations. Those are just some of the people I remember. Sister Letitia Whitney, I remember the night that Sister Letitia died, we were here having all-night prayer, Sister Alma and myself and Brother Travis. She didn't die in the church, but just we got the news that she had died, and it upset the prayer meeting. We were kind of scared, but Sister Whitney was a person that you could really love. And one of the things I remember about her, she would take care of a little girl that was retarded. And she was foster parent to that child, and she would bring her to church. And to me, she was just a lovely woman. Also, older woman that I remember a lot, my mother was Mother Johnny Munger. Mother Munger Monroe didn't take, can I say, no stuff. She very disciplined woman. She would spank you if it was necessary. You would not conduct yourself in an unholy manner in this sanctuary. Not if Mother Monroe was here. You just knew Mother Monroe will get you. You didn't do a whole lot of lollygagging. You didn't do a whole lot of what would be disrespectful to the house of God. Mother Monroe would not allow it. She would come after you with an umbrella. She would tell your parents on you, and it wasn't a thing that, if she went to your parents and tell your parents something that you did, there was no voice for you. You just might as well just be quiet, because Mother Monroe said, and they knew she was a woman of integrity, and she wouldn't lie on you, so you were about to get spanked twice. So, and I'm sure there's many more people that you just love. I watched them in worship service, and some of their mannerisms, and some of the songs that they would sing, the way that they praise God, it just meant a lot to you.
And I get the impression that, having come so much later in the system, but I get the impression you have such warm memories, and that's the kind of memories, the testimonies that held you together, even in your own personal life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a vibrant and an essential piece of being a Christian, because you need the testimonies, the examples of others. So when you're going through a particular experience, you can say, well, I remember this. So-and-so got through this. Or I saw how so-and-so survived.
So Debra, I think one of the things that makes it very important for us is something that my father often taught us. You read about characters in the Bible.
Yes.
But we were blessed to have some sanctified, holy people walking among you. I've never met Peter or Paul or John or James. I've never met them. But Mother Monroe and Brother Carew, these people I lived with and touched and saw them living a godly life.
So you knew it could be done.
Oh yeah, it could be done.
You knew it could be done.
That's why sometimes we do what we say, going through memory lane. We sing some of those songs. We reminisce about those people. And I enjoy it. I find nothing wrong with it because of the character that they had. Sometimes different ones do that. I laugh when I hear it, because I think it's something wonderful that you're not ashamed. You're blessed.
And it's a web that keeps us all together in the Christian faith. Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. And I was thinking that they were talking about these characters. Mother Monroe was my mother. I remember when I first came to Philadelphia back in 1944, we was at Old Mount Zion, 10th Street. And the minute I walked in that church, nobody knew that I had no mother. My mother had died. Mother Monroe came to me and said, the Lord said I'm your mother. And she was very close to me from then on. And I thought a lot of Mother Monroe. She was very strict lady, like her daughter said. And she was just what she was. And I used to, even when she began to get old, and I would have to go and bring her to church, and my son to come get me. My son to get me home. And I know one time, I think my brother had to take her home. He had to take some people somewhere else. And he'd go on and come around the curves or whatnot. If the Mother Monroe was sitting at the squad, we got to the project, we got out. She put her foot on the ground. She said, well, thank you, son. She said, but you'll never have to bring me home no more. From now on, Dave will bring me home. And those people, they were jolly people, but they were stern people. And Mother Kitchen, she just had a shout. To see her shout would, to do something to you. And she had a song she sang about crying holy unto the Lord. In that day, bells on the altar, crying holy unto the Lord. And we would sing that song and shout, oh, this looked like a power stuff would fall. And we just had church. Mother Cook was another lady that she said I was her son. All of them called me their son. I always loved old people. And they looked like always loved me. Old people and young people have been my folks. And when she would cook, she would bake cake, she always baked me a cake. When she made a pie, she always made one for me. And she was just all right. She prophesied before we left the other church that my wife, B, was going to be my wife. And different people, trying to put me together with different folk and everything. And Mother Adeline said, James Blassingame, B, Roach is your wife. And she kept saying that. She said, that's your wife. And I didn't see it then. But guess who my wife is? But I thank God for all of the old saints. Mother Kitchen, Mother Monroe, Mother Jessica Smith, and Mother Smith. She worked hard in that kitchen. And another lady that really worked hard in that kitchen, and We were supposed to have $10,000 about summer time. We had about 3 months to make something in the church. And when the 3 months was up, we had that $10,000. It's all the mother Jesse Smith, Mother Monroe, and Mother lady that died, Patricia Whitten, and they worked. The Lamar, Sister, the lady, Graham. Graham. Yes, indeed. They were some staunch workers. They didn't mind. They'd come out here and work in that kitchen and sell those things. And we raised that money. When the time comes, we had $10,000 because, and all these were mothers. I mean, if they worked, they had days' work, you know what I mean? But they loved the pastor and they loved that church. And they saw to us that we had this building today. Because of them, we were able to be here today.
Right. One time to see about borrowing some money.
Yeah.
From Ely. Yeah. And he said, no, not the way you people can cook. Don't go into debt and borrow the money. Y'all get in there and make your money, because that's the way you do it. And it began to be looked upon as a negative way to get money in the later years. But when there were a lot of jobs, you know, and things like this, where people didn't make a lot of money, people would always eat.
Yes.
If you gave them good food and a lot of food, they would, the Lord blessed us that way. And I thank God for it.
You never tear down the bricks.
That's right. That's right.
One of the mothers, Mother Brony, was very instrumental in praying with me as I received the Lord. And I always remember her being in my ear. You know, we used to go to the altar then, and I mean, you really just prayed. You didn't recite what someone told you to say. You prayed, and those mothers and some of the deacons, they would get down on the altar with you. And in your ear, they would just be praying. You couldn't help but come through. And Mother Ronnie was there for me. And along with Sister H.L. Evans. And I remember Sister Evans, and one of the things she said to me, she says, baby, you can stay safe if you want to. And that always went a long way with me, if you want to. And I said, God, I want to stay safe. So it works.
We want the audience to remember all of these people. And I guess I'd like to give them a feel, do some adjectives. So we'll go through the group and think about adjectives that you think of, godly adjectives. What I'm hearing is a sense of perseverance. I'm hearing a sense of steadfastness. Any other integrity. Any other adjectives that you'd like to add to that list that would really let the audience know that these people were people who were steadfast and would do what was ever necessary.
They were caring people, very loving people. They would really encourage you. They didn't always down you. They feel on you hard. They would really get on you hard, but it's because they loved you. You could feel the love. You know it wasn't something to try to push you down, but it's to help you. And when you did good, they encouraged you.
Okay.
You could always hear, because you can do this. It's something you can do. God is always
encouraging you.
Yes, they were very encouraging.
And our mother's kitchen, she saw to this place was clean. Stuff was piled up down there in that closet. Well, she'll come in one day and you come look for your stuff and it's gone. She would throw it out.
So they were diligent workers.
Oh yes, oh yes,
Okay.
oh yes,
All right.
very diligent.